Let's go. Let's go.
What is good, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to another episode of Hit Confirm, episode 21. And I am your host, one half of this link, Casey, joined by the other link, Coach.
Hey man, did you hit confirm that link though?
Every time I think of links, I think of Street Fighter 4, and I think about how many times I dropped my combos in that game.
Oh man, it's been a while since we got with you guys and gals to talk about whatever. But before we actually get started, we usually do our banter, but I wanted to to just put this out here like flat out is big thank you to the Virtua Fighter community for coming strong on our last episode. Thank you, Tricky, for joining us. It was our most watched and viewed, liked episode, and it was really cool to see how you guys shared it, word of mouth through your websites and all of that. And a lot of people rolled in and watched it, commented on it, and engaged with it, showing the passion and power of that community. And once again, we're extremely thankful and to all of you guys and gals who've been like watching us and sharing us and throwing those props my way. I had a few people in the stream, mention it to me like, "Yo, I love you, watch the show and all that stuff." But thanks.
Yeah, man, I ditto with that, man. I really appreciate you guys for coming in and just make showing me how like big the scene is in general still, even in these times, I've never knew how like strong the virtual fighter community was, and for them to come in strong this way, that really opened my eyes, and it just makes me more like happy to see with that just the FGC in general, because there was one point where I was like losing my faith in everything with the FGC. But then this year kind of like, kind of picked it up for me, honestly. And that kind of put it into like, the next gear when they came on. And, so I really, really appreciate the Virtual Fighter community. You guys, much love.
Yep, yep. Thank you for letting us be part of showing passion you all have for your game. But usually we do some quirky transition, but I'm hopefully
Nah,
yeah,
hey,
not today. We gonna talk about one of the things that has been, I would say, a part of fighting games, not even just fighting games, any competitive games really, but we're gonna specifically focus on fighting games where character love and loyalty in its many forms and the effect it
yes.
has on people who pick these games up.
Yes, man, it's a beautiful thing. It's like a really interesting relationship, right? Where you first see the game, you're like, cool, this game looks pretty neat. I guess I will probably like it. And then you see a character and you're like, wait a minute, I automatically like this character. Screw like how this game mechanics work, everything. This character comes first. And
Uh, yeah.
that's how it usually like starts for people. When I talk to them, or even in my experience, it's I've gotten introduced to games because of like maybe a couple characters, and then there just one just sticks out to me, and I'm like, whoa, like this character is the best. It's like the way I see it is since I have a background in like theater and psychology and stuff like that. I come at it with a state of mind where it's like I take the personalities of the characters from their gameplay and try to relate that to things, and it's so fun actually. It's very fun, very interesting. So yeah, really want to get ready to get deep into this.
Yeah, a lot of what you said, yeah, definitely. I've observed it so many times. Like the games themselves can be very character driven. Like, people walking by and watching a game that they generally would not have played, and then they see a character do something cool, or even say a line or some kind of special effects. Like, oh, that's that right there. And then sometimes that's what it took for that person to fall in love with the game. And so, you know, being aligned with a character through mechanics, aesthetic, personality, or if you like them from some other franchise, if that's a third party franchise fighting game, that's a big driving force in why people play these games, how long they play, what kind of effort they're gonna put in general.
Yeah, it's that effort too, like that really like drives it home, that makes them want to go to like, training mode and learn everything about the character, and then sometimes like even the lore of the character, and I guess what like really wanted me to like pick this topic was I was on Twitter one day and I saw a character that it seems she has a lot of love, Melina in Mortal Kombat. Now, it's been ages since I've played Mortal Kombat.
Hmm.
I'm a big fan of Rain, so I think that character's pretty cool. But to see the love for Melina, I never knew that. And there was a player, if I remember correctly, hopefully I don't butcher her name, Losty Girls.
Hmm.
Um, she there was a direct a s- Melina has a direct comment, kind of referencing, I guess, Losty Girls, and I thought that was pretty cool because that was showing like the devs like through the characters showing how much the players love the characters, and that had to send chills down her spine because I
Yeah.
know it would for me.
Yeah, like because I know there's a similar reference where Deadpool was referencing stuff Yipe said. So stuff like that where like your connection with the game or character is so strong that the devs are like, we're gonna make a reference to it. I imagine she was probably quite ecstatic.
Yeah, man, because on the outside, as a like when you're looking at fighting games just casually, y- uh, we always talk about like they probably see us just mashing and stuff, but we never like, I guess, convey it or put it into perspective of how like the character love is there, and it might seem kind of weird to some people, kind of like the whole 2D love thing.
Yeah.
But no, it's definitely, there's a lot that goes into it, and sometimes it helps you become like a better player. I know it's definitely helped me become a better player.
So, so like, I guess before we start like really diving in, I'll just give my quick perspective like on how I personally approach these games. Because when I first was playing Street Fighter, I was just love Chun Li. Like I love the Chinese kung fu girl all the time. Like Pi and Virtua Fighter, Jam and Guilty Gear and all that stuff. Like I was just gonna pick them automatically because that was me. But then one day I got tired of playing Chun in like Street Fighter 4. And I was like, let me try some Dudley, a character I would just never play. And I was like, this is interesting. And I got into it and became the character I ended up maining. And then over time, I started getting drifting off to all kinds of characters like playing Zangief, uh, playing Zappa, and plus R now. Just like I've actually become the opposite of somebody who picks a game because of their character. I'm actually looking at the
Hmm.
game itself. And so like I've become the point where it's like, let me look at the mechanics, look at how the game plays out, and I'll find something interesting out of the cast after that. And I know it's like really different from a lot of people because a lot of people are the exact opposite. If I can't find a character I want to play, no matter how smooth and awesome this game is, I'm probably not gonna play it. Or if I do, I'll casually match with the character on the box.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But I've become the opposite lately, where I've like, let me look at the game mechanic. Okay, this is fun, interesting, engaging. I can see the interactions. Let me look at the cast. Okay, I think this character can do something interesting in this game. Let me play them. Or I saw this high level player do this. Like, I want to do that. So like I've just become really fluid in what I'm basically picking. So that's why I wanted to really jump on this episode as well to kind of get bring that kind of, I don't want to say opposite, but kind of parallel perspective of why people approach a game and what they put into it. But I
Right.
think the character driven aspect of it is number one, and that's the majority for sure.
It's interesting because I rarely hear that, or I don't think I've really heard that at all. Like usually, because it does come from the character that you fall in love with, and you just you basically want to express yourself, I guess, to that character. So taking your perspective, y- you're expressing yourself through the game first, then I guess the characters, which
That's
is kind of interesting. That's very interesting, I guess.
yeah. I just want to throw it out there before we start going through it. But yeah, but I feel like talking about how people approach with their character love is more important, and then coming back to that.
Okay. So yeah, I guess like it's better for me or easier for me to understand because, like I said, so for instance, a good example is Marvel vs. Capcom 3. When I was playing that game, there or anybody plays that game, there's a lot of love for a lot of different characters in that game. For me, I there's actually like a lot of characters in that game to the point where I had like a character team crisis. but but the main characters that I really like or the main character in general that I really liked was Magneto, and I've always liked him as a character because he was always something I can kind of relate to, but also like opposite of who I am as a person. He's very aggressive in his means and how he approached things, and I've always been like kind of like the opposite and like approaching things. I guess the Mr. X, I guess if you want to put it, but but when it's kind of interesting because once you start to play the character and you start to learn more about them, like their play styles, and you start to have matches with them, then little thing, just the little smallest minute things happen that you hate what happens when a character like getting hit. it's it helps you, it wakes you up. It's like, whoa, like my character's getting hit, they're making these sounds I don't like that sound. And it's just now it's like you have to defend, you like want to fight for that character. So then that's when you start putting in that work. It is so weird and silly, such a silly thing it sounds like at first, but I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people who are listening right now that can relate to this.
Yeah, I would think so, and it could be like anything. I've heard all kinds of things where it's like, this character made a sound effect that made me laugh, so I picked him. And then that was the character they played for like 6 years. Or, I saw this character in like a crossover episode of some show, and oh, I didn't know they were from a fighting game. Oh man, I had to go all into it. Or they saw some fan art. It could be anything that like lights that fire. So that's always fun for me. And like you talk to people and you see they're so good with this character, like what made you like this character? Oh, well, I thought the dress looks nice. And like, what? So I always thought that was funny and pretty cool.
Yeah, man. Just having that relationship with that character. I know that sounds so weird, but it's just like it works so well once you like play it and you're in the moment, because then you get to like us fighting games are about expression too, right?
Right.
And you want to do that the best way you can. And what better way to do it than like a character that you like and you love, you know?
Yeah,
So yeah, it's very important, I feel.
for sure. It's definitely gonna have a bit of an impact. Not only, and this is the part where it gets kind of dark and ugly, right? It's not not
Come
only
on,
you,
give it
you
to me, man.
not only your synergistic effect, like how you motivated you are about the game and stuff, because that drives a lot of people. Like you endlessly hear like, oh, like I mentioned earlier, I love this game, but I just can't find a character, and the character I like is, I just don't like them as much as if so and so was in this game. So I hope there is DLC or whatever. But the,
Yep.
the darkest side is something where you get the character you oh so love, right? And one, they might be extremely difficult to handle in a mechanical execution strategy sense. They might just flat out be bad, or they might be okay, but they're not as tournament viable as you would like them to be. And so this is the point where I think this is where the heart of the discussion is the numerous effects that character love can have when you both good and bad. Where you're like, I want to win tournaments, or at a local level, regional, major, or at least just be decent with my character. And your character is not so great, and then so you have to sit there and like, I'm not some people take the I'm not changing my character regardless, and they become, maybe angry and upset and frustrated at the devs, the game, or whatever. Or maybe they'll reluctantly switch to a character that they kind of like, and it's not nearly as much. Or they might pick up a secondary to cover really bad stuff that the character has to go through. And so that's the kind of card of character loyalty that people really think about. And then there's all kinds of ideas about judging that, like, people are like, oh, you left your character, you're not a real character loyalist, you
Yes.
left your character, you're not worth anything. And then there's the other side, people are like, oh, you sticking to that bad trash character, are you dumb, are you not functional. And it's like, you can't really please anybody. So What are your thoughts on that?
You no, you can't win either way, and it's and then you seem like a hypocrite if you like, I don't know, if you play a character that's top tier and you say you really love the character, but then I don't know, like people think you're a hypocrite because I don't know, it goes so many ways, right? And it's it can get kind of complicated, but I think uh one thing I do want to talk about that you mentioned was characters not being people not having their characters in their games. Um, there's a lot of games that are like infamous for that. You have like Marvel's Capcom Infinite not having like Magneto or Storm, or the X Men for that matter.
Hmm.
And that's a perfect example right there because the X Men has that history, not just like in the comic books, but with like the Marvel's Capcom universe in general.
Yep.
So then when they did that, when they took that out of the equation, people were like, this doesn't even feel like a Marvel's Capcom game anymore, and they didn't even play it yet. and I and I definitely understood why because it was the fear of not being able to have that quote unquote function
Yeah, I
with the
want to talk
character
about that. I did want to talk about that, but keep going.
quote unquote function that they wouldn't be able to have with the character. But then here's the thing: the game did come out, and some characters did have that function, but they weren't there. They weren't the characters that they used to, know. You know, so
For sure, and that comment that was made about the X Men not being in the game essentially, uh that started a fire in the FGC where people were some people were furious, some people were like disappointed, upset, disgusted, whatever word you want to put on it that has a negative connotation. They didn't care for it at all. They didn't like that, like you said, that the character that they liked that built that game because the game started the whole Marvel series started with Children of the Atom, about mutants, and none of them were there, and so people like had a backlash against that. Like, why would you call my beloved Wolverine a function? Magneto's not a tri-dash. He's a mutant supremacist trying to fight for the betterment of his kind. Whatever, right? He's not a tri-dash overhead character. But there are some people who, like me, who actually start thinking like that. Where I'm like, what do I look for in the game? Because the reason I picked like Faust and Zerd wasn't because this character's funny. It's more like I wanted a character that could control mid range because I like to do that. So what tools best express that? And I felt like he was the go-to there. And like when Johnny came out, I wanted to play him. But I was like, I don't want to do execution. But they follow along similar ideas. I wasn't particularly attached to the characters, but I was attached to the mechanics. And as much as I don't want to say, functions, you shouldn't have got flack for saying functions because, you're not just selling the game to highly competitive people, you're selling it to everybody. So I don't think that's
right.
the way you should go about it. But how can I put this? But there is a point where you kind of got to acknowledge that some people do look for the tools. Like I'm a tool seeker. I'm not a aesthetic personality seeker. I'm a tool seeker. And so like that kind of thing like apply to me, but I understand that I'm the minority, so that definitely should not have been the way to sell that game. But
Y-
sometimes,
y-
but oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, yeah, like I'm definitely the opposite. I look for aesthetics and everything, and even though I wasn't completely upset that Magneto didn't make it into the game, he had his quote unquote, like I said, function. Um, because it means a lot to me and to a lot of people because you just hearing things like magnetic blast, and disruptor and just different iconic sounds, you know, that weren't there anymore, that were there for like over 10 years. But I also understand, they wanted to make new iconic sounds, but it kind of conflicts, right? Because like I said, I love the old Magneto. I love that like iconic sounds of Magneto, doing his attacks and stuff like that. But then you have like new characters, but they still have that, I hate saying it, function of Magneto without the sounds. So it's kind of like, they're a shell of like what the character was, I would suppose. I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
And I guess the ultimate question would be: is does that satisfy a Magneto player? And I guess it goes to it depends, right?
Yeah.
Like, what did you like Magneto for? And that's gonna be the answer's gonna vary, right?
Yeah, yeah. But for the most part, it's probably because, like, like he can fly, he can do all those cool tri-dash attacks. But if you talk to most people, it was because he was cool.
Yep.
He was he was the guy. And it's kind of like, what's another character that I can think of that has like a function in a different game, that like another, because there's multiple ones, right? Um, the typical one I get. Here you go. The I guess you could say like the Kins and the Ryus of different fighting games. And this is where things get very, very like in a gray area, because you might have somebody who loves Soul Bad Guy but
Hmm.
can't stand Ryu or Kin.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's where it gets kind of sticky.
I guess I would say at least with Guilty Gear, characters don't generally fit in molds. I guess because even though
Hmm.
Soul's the guy on the box, he doesn't have like a standard playstyle you play through. He's running in your face and then grabbing you by the neck, which is
Yep.
like not a lot of characters are gonna generally do stuff like that. But but like yeah, like the Street Fighter, a lot of people but a lot of people see that he's the guy on the box, and I'm not going away with it.
Exactly.
But even though like they probably would have loved him because he's so energetic and aggressive, and that's what they wanted. But they're like, oh, I don't want to play the Ryu character, and so they kind of get all biased there.
Yeah, man. It's aesthetics, all that plays a very, very pivotal role for when people, like we said earlier, choose their characters, and then it can end up being like, a mistake sometimes, like how you just mentioned, because it's like Guilty Gear characters don't fall in that, cookie cutter role of, how like Evo, how like Ryu and Kin are. So, but like you said, you see him on the front of the box, and you're like, well, I'm always the Ryu and Kin guy, so let me pick the Ryu Kin of the gate. It's like, no, that's not the case this time.
Yeah, you actually get the opposite of what you want. This guy's not basic. He's out of control actually. But that's actually funny that you mentioned that because there's something else about character loyalty that always gets me is that when someone's loyal to a character that they don't understand or vibe with well, it and it is like a character that they can't stand aesthetically. I've seen this a few times where they can't stand them aesthetically, but their move set flows with them so well. And I'm like, I feel so comfortable with this, but I hate the way they look. And it's funny because it's come up a few times with people, and and even beyond that, like if you love a character, there's nothing wrong with still trying other characters. 'Cause I know a lot of people who are diehard character loyalists. They'll still know enough about the other characters. They'll still play them, and they'll explore like maybe there's something I like more. And so keep that open mind for that.
Yeah, I guess the closest thing I could relate to that is like Ed. I feel like everybody feels like that with Ed. It's like Ed looks so ridiculous, but his attacks, everything else is like cool. And the mechanics about him are cool. But like Ed, the character himself looks so like weird.
He did get a little backlash when his design was revealed from the actual story design. But yeah, that's one thing that can happen. I guess so when people get into I guess the other side of character loyalty and everything that we haven't really touched on, the good old double C word. You know what I'm talking about?
Other than Casey and Coach? Well, no, no, what's that?
Character
No,
crisis.
oh, character crisis.
The
Yeah, I did
character
mention it
crisis.
earlier.
Like, yeah, you hit it
Yeah.
at it, but yeah, it's like that character crisis. Like we've been talking around it, but we don't talk about those people who like really struggle with it. Where they're like they pick up a character for a week, I can't stand this. They pick up another character for a week, I can't stand this, and or they'll play a character for a good amount of time and be like, but this isn't really it. And a lot of times when I see this, actually, it's people who don't really want to put in. How can I put it? I don't want to say they're not putting in effort, but they don't want to go through the ups and downs of learning. like the good times, the bad times, learning how to deal with disadvantage stuff, learning how to deal with advantage stuff. They want the kind of instant gratification, and if they don't get it, they kind of write it off as this character's not for me, or I don't like them, or whatever. When if they actually put in the motions and go through the steps to get to a competent place, maybe they'd feel differently.
I think that's probably number one, and I also feel like it's the fact that people don't they like to be different with in fighting games. So they'll get to a point with the character where they feel like the same as the player. And I've seen this happen a lot. People are like, "Oh, I don't feel like I'm having I'm not having fun as I thought I would with the character, and everybody else is, but like I just see that I'm doing the same things as them." And that's understandable because, like at the same time, for some people playing fighting games, it's like, they want to please other people, like spectators and stuff.
Some
So that's
people do
totally
want to be
understandable.
cool, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's definitely a huge problem because that stunts the growth of, I'm not just going to say so many players, like pretty much almost all of us. Yeah, I'm definitely, like for me, I've experienced it so many times. I kind of going through it right now with finding a point character in DBFZ. Like it's and there's so many other factors too. Like the game can be like very well balanced to the point where it's like, man, I don't know which character to choose, or the game it could be, oh, I just legit like all these characters, and it's so many factors that can go into it, and you gotta put yourself once you start to be loyal to the character and once you like focus in, that's when you have to slowly like take away those factors and just focus on like you know getting better, and that's the hard part that so hard.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of things like you mentioned earlier, people want to be different because like people will go, I really, really love this character. And they might say, I might have a lot of fun with this character, but everybody else is playing them too. So I
Yeah.
don't want to do it, even if I love it to death. And so there's like always like all these little factors that drive people so much. And I guess like to like the character crisis, the character loyalty, like whether the character's good or bad. My ultimate take on this, and this is what I tell people because I have never ever actually told people to pick a top tier like in a serious manner if they're struggling. I always say this, and I feel like it can go to any situation. And it is kind of generic, but I say define your goal and make sure that what you're doing is going to that goal. So like if you're playing a character who you feel cannot, compete in a high tournament level, then maybe it is time for you to switch to something better because your goal may be to win the tournament. Now, if your goal is this character's not so great in other people's eyes, but I think they're great. And so I want to, prove that I'm really strong with this character and even show that they can win, then that's great too. Make sure that your goals and your actions align at all times. And I feel like your frustrations will generally go away because sometimes that means you got to walk away from a game where, you love a character who's really terrible and who won't ever win a tournament and you don't care about looking cool to people. Sometimes we're like, until the patch comes, I mean, to walk away to something else because you don't want to struggle and get mad and angry. But if your goal is like, no, this character's terrible, but I'm gonna show the world their potential. I want to be on highlight reels. I want people to speak my name when this character comes up. Then keep playing them, keep doing your thing, and that's to me, that's what it is. Define your goal and make sure your actions align with that goal. And I think you'll just be a generally happier person.
Yeah. It's so hard not to compare yourself in competition. And I
Oh,
think that's the problem where that people run into is, man, if I play this character, I'm not going to be as good as this person with this character, or I want to be able to show people what you can do with this character, and yada yada yada. But it's it's definitely quite. I don't know how to put it because usually whenever I kind of say the same thing when I tell people if they're having a character crisis, I tell them to focus more so on like the goal of what they want, how they want to approach the game.
hmm
And usually I'll see them either the next day or next week or next tournament actually playing the character that they put in work with, the most work with. And it's not even like the best character ever. It's just like the character they put in the most work with. And I'll see them have the best results. And then next thing you know is people are like, wow, you're actually sticking with this trash character, and they're like, well, I like this character. Well, it's not like necessarily they like the character, but it's like they have so much experience with the character to the point where they grow that like for the character, and then they end up getting, I guess, better. So, but then that's the second they hit that plateau, then that's when they started questioning, man, that should I stick with this character or not? You know, I've been through it, through hell and back, and it's still not working for me.
That's what they call it in the business, the moment of truth. And I feel like that's a very fair thing to do where you like I got to a point I don't know how to break past this point. You know, it might be my character, it might be my tactics. Maybe I just need to take a break from the game and come back fresh. Anything, right? But it is valid to question your character choice. Don't ever feel bad about it. You know, you might just roll back to that character, or you might pick something new, and it might just be for like a week or two or a month, and then you might be like, I actually got some ideas from playing this character that I can bring back to my character because I had a new perspective. So like keep your mind open. Maybe you won't, finish the game finish the game with the character that you started with, or maybe you'll come back around to them at the end. But be open minded, be flexible. But if your goal is I'm character loyalist, till I die, then understand the good and bad that comes with that as well.
Yeah, I just think, and this is where we were probably like differ a little bit more, and I kind of mentioned it earlier, is if you like really love that character and just stick with them, because I've through all my years in the FGC, I've seen every time I've seen like a strong player with a strong character, and people are like, "Wow, man, this guy, or this girl knows all this like these combos, all these setups. They're very clutch. That's a very special thing to have. Very clutch in these like in these moments where it's not really in their favor. It's like, how is it like this? They're sticking with the character, and you see them in interviews, and they're like, "Oh, I just like the character, and I just stuck with them." And I've seen it happen now with a couple friends, like people now, like people, for example, my friend Empty, uh, he used to go by the Tank. Will, he sticks with Soul, bad guy, and he loves that character through and through, and you see it in his gameplay, and it's like it's so cool to see because then that passion is like going through, and then each like with each win, it just they learn from everything, and it's really good, man. Same thing with like another good example is Kazunoko with Haas. You know, he when he plays that character, you see like it's a different type of like vibe with him, man. And it's something that you can't really like emulate. Only he can just do it. And that's what I mean. Like when people they have a character that you like stick with that character because like little every single thing you're gonna be able to catch on with adapting. Like I said earlier with the screams, you're just like, oh, I don't like the way this character is getting hit, and then you might go back and like, dang, I got hit here, and that's why I heard the scream. I got hit here. I don't want to get hit in this situation again. And then you start like, it'll start snowballing, and then you'll start to realize, next thing you know, wow, I've beaten this player with this character that I've never that I had a hard time with beating before. It's because you put in that work and you like that character. I don't know. That's just how the way I've always seen it, and it's also helped me out personally. And I've seen other people um helped it see I helped it seeing people progress with them. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
That's what's up, and I definitely observed that a lot as well. What I say is, what means the world to you is what you should pursue, right? But
Yeah.
cause if you stick with a character like through all the game iterations and all that stuff, you get that experience of like this really obscure situation. You've seen it 100,000 times, and so when the new game comes out, or it's been 10 years, you can't really get tricked or fooled, and you know how to like navigate all kinds of situations. So that is a power of character loyalty. Though I guess I would differ in the sense that I say like if your frustration point bubbles up to that line where you can't really tolerate it, where it's becoming unhealthy, you know, you might need to make some moves. I'm not gonna
Or
tell
if
you
it's
what those moves.
unhealthy,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm not gonna tell you what the moves are, and you know what your limits are, what you want to deal with, and maybe that means walking away. Maybe that means looking at another aspect of your character that you didn't really explore or that you kind of ignored. It could be another character, but like I'm never gonna tell you what decision to make, but always think about what your goal is, and always think about if you're getting close to that goal. And And sometimes your character loyalty is the answer. If your goal is like to win a tournament and push them over the edge, or it might drive you crazy. I've seen both, and so
Yeah,
I,
if no, you being it can definitely be unhealthy. I'll never forget that time before like the final round for the heavy hitter final round for Marvel vs. Capcom 3. I was just like sitting at the character select screen, literally for like over 30 minutes, not doing anything but just looking at the character select screen. And after that, I said to myself, "This isn't good. This isn't healthy. I'm sitting here looking at a video game, just looking at it. At this point, I haven't made no progress. Sitting here just thinking, too overthinking things. I was like, let me just walk away from it for like a day and then come back and just make it and finally make a decision and just stick to it. And when that happened, I actually had a result. But other than that, like yeah, you if this becomes unhealthy, you might want to walk away for a little bit. So yeah, that's because that's the best thing I would say is like is take a break from the games because like these games can like take a toll on when you're putting so much time and effort into it.
yeah, like anything you put actual energy into, you start spinning your wheels. It can affect you on many levels. We could do another episode. I want to do an episode on like your self esteem and stuff like that and how it affects.
Oh
And
yeah.
we definitely gonna get to that. But yeah, like you know, at the end of the day, I I personally won't look down on what anybody does, whether they stick to their character to the bitter end, whether they're the worst or best in the game, or if they change their character every week. As long as that you're engaging the game in a way that you feel comfortable with, that you're having fun with, don't worry about what other people are doing, saying about your character. If your character is top one and you love that character for all the other reasons, it don't matter what they say. If the character's top one and you love them because they're top one, it don't matter what anybody has to say. So get out there, love your game, and show your passion through it as best you can.
Yeah, man. Don't just stick. Look, I second that to what he just said, man. Just stick to your guns, man. Don't care what other people say, because the second you do, that's when you start second guessing yourself, and then you start looking at other characters, and it's like when you order when you order a food at a restaurant, and you're like, "Ooh, what you got? What you got? Oh, I want that." It was like, well, you just try out what you just got. You might actually like it. or
That-
or stick to what you usually get. And then you might have the other person be at the other side of the table and be like, yeah, that looks really nice, and you just start giving them information. Yeah, like actually I could pick this because it has such and such protein in this. So yeah, like
yeah, I see the other way around. Someone looks at your plate, goes, "Ew," but it's your favorite thing to eat, man. Eat it anyway. Cause
yep.
I've seen so many people get discouraged. Like I know there was a friend of mine who's like, I love Cammy and Street Fighter Five, like when it first came out. But I see so many people playing Cammy, and I don't want to feel like I'm just a poser. It's like no, I don't care if like 99% of the game's community is playing Cammy. If you love Cammy, then pick your end player if that's what you want. And so like don't get discouraged by what other people think because that's something that pervades this community a lot. And so if you want to be the best you can be, I think, you know, sticking to your guns, like Casey said, is the way to go about it. Whatever decision you make, follow it through. The good and the bad, the ups and the downs. It's not gonna always be an easy path, but it's gonna be a path that, involves you growing as a player, as somebody who, maybe uses that character, plays that game or whatever.
Yeah, and because I know, like I said, I've been through it with like actually with Guilty Gear, for me, I really didn't have any character crisis. It's just I've always liked and Johnny, and so I just stuck with them. But I did get to a point for where for when Exert came out, I felt like I wasn't unique in my gameplay,
Yeah.
and I kind of bring this out on my Twitter sometimes about like how like oh I don't like this about Exert, blah 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 blah, and but it's at the end of the day, it's like you just stick to your character, and then people will like next people will start like looking at you like how you play the game and the character, and they'll be interested in playing the character. You'll start influence people, and that's the thing that people don't talk about when they stick to when they're the character loyalists, is how they influence other people to pick a character. Because that to me is really cool, and then they bring their own style to the character. It's so sick.
Oh man, I am so glad that you brought that up because I see some people struggle like, man, I need footage of these people. I don't know what to do at this high level. I'm like, you look at the character and you do the things you want to do, and then you fix them over time, you polish them, then you'll develop styles, and people will look at, like you said, people will look at you, even if you're not really that great, and they'll be like, I didn't really know you could use that tool that way. I didn't know you could approach that matchup that way. Not even the best players know everything, and so
Yep.
be if you want to play. I don't know if you want to play Lancelot and Grand Blue versus, then be the Lancelot you want to see in the world, essentially, because other people are going to look at you as you play and learn over time, like, oh, okay, that's cool. Just the same way you're going to look at them, and so be a part of that process, contribute, and try to push your character, and with the help of other people in the community, you might make something special.
Yep. That's why I like mirror matches. I still kind of hate mirror matches, but now I appreciate them more because you find out so much more information on like how to approach the game with your character in mirror matches. So is if you guys like pay more attention to mirror matches, it may seem boring at first. They may be doing because they have the same exact moves and stuff like that. But pay close attention to those mirror matches because then you'll see the difference in styles, and then you'll start to be like, oh wow, this even though the other Akuma might not be as good as the other Akuma, you'll start to appreciate the weaker Akuma in certain aspects. And you'll start taking things from his game to make your Akuma even cooler and unique. So that there's so many dynamics to it.
For sure, man, for sure. So yeah, like don't ever discount yourself as, oh, I'm just another X player or whatever. Just realize that if you keep going, you keep pushing, and then people are gonna see you, and they want to do the things you do. 'Cause there's always somebody behind you, just like there's always somebody in front of you, and keeping that perspective will always help.
Yep. And please do not get discouraged if you use a move a certain way and it's a good move, but you just use it a certain way and people get say you're scrubby at doing it. That I've heard so many good play said this about so many new good players. They're like, man, he uses this move so scrubby. He DPs here all the time, and then you'll see that player always like in top 16, top 8.
That is actually pretty common. And I actually had it in my mind to mention that, so I'm glad you mentioned it again, man. Casey, you're on top of this. But yeah, people, when you love a character so much, and then you start seeing other people play that character, and then you see it all the times in streams, like, why are they playing so conservative in this matchup? Why aren't they using this move? That combo's not optimal. Yet that person's sitting there in top three, when it's like, this person's not really good at this character. They should be doing this, and that. And then this person's like, and then that person has never been to a tournament or never gone past, like, 1 and 2. 1 and 2 is good because you went to the tournament, but you're criticizing somebody who's clearly operating at a higher level than you, and that maybe maybe those are things they could put in their game, but they also
Hmm.
could be things that they don't think will improve their game significantly enough for it to matter because they feel they are where they are and they got to improve on other aspects. So like when you look at somebody else playing your character and you're so harsh judgmental, just think about what it would look like the other way around. Could you honestly say that those criticisms wouldn't apply to you or other criticisms? So always keep that in mind and try to I would say try to be supportive of what they're doing and try to take from the strong aspects like you mentioned earlier. I think that's more helpful than being too conscious of whether they're doing the optimal combo that does 1% more damage or something. So they may not be playing the character as the way you envision it, but we don't all look at things the same way. We don't value things the same way. We all come up with our unique ideas, and so that's what makes these games so much fun, is because when you play somebody who plays this character, you don't know what you're going to get as opposed to the next person and what things they value and what they're going to go after. So that's what makes the games fun.
Yep. I've definitely heard Justin Wong on multiple occasions say he saw somebody do something in pools with his character and he, tried it out because he thought it was interesting. And, some random guy in pool that nobody knows about. And now you got one of the best players, if not the best player in the world, like Justin Wong, trying it out. And it works for him. And then people ask him, how'd you find out about this tech, or how'd you know this work in this situation? It's like he'll just tell you, oh, I just saw somebody in my Street Fighter pools do it.
You never know where you'll get your inspiration from. So Like keep it.
Yeah.
I said this. I've said this the whole time. I say it a lot. Just keep an open mind and observe. And it's hard for things to go wrong if you're truly observing and truly trying to keep a really good perspective of what's happening.
Yeah. I think this is a good time for this episode too because Guilty Gear plus R is kind of like in its like I don't want to say prime, but or it could be in its prime, I guess. I don't know, but it's very in a state where everybody's like, playing it
Very
and it's
active.
very active, yeah. But you have it doesn't have like the very robust tutorial like these other games.
Hmm.
So you have people scrambling around for like, how to play their character. And I'm also learning a new character on the side. And I'm not looking at too many videos. I'm like learning on my own and kind of like, trying to take some styles from other players. But other than that, I'm kind of like learning on my own. And I feel like, that it's like we said, it's kind of like the best way to go about it is like when you do see other players and you're like, wait, why is he using that move that way? And you're like, wait, let me just try it out and see if it works with me and see how can I use it or abuse it my own way, you know?
For sure.
And
Uh,
next, and it's honestly it's a compliment if somebody's like, you use that move that way? That's weird. I don't get that. Why'd you do that? And then next thing you know, you see they took off half their health.
and they didn't see it coming. Like, oh, you never, you read in the wiki, never use this move, and then they see you on stream using it and winning it. But yeah, I'm of a similar mind because I picked up Plus R and I was like, I could go with Faust. And you mentioned earlier, like learning to love the characters after you played him for a while, and I think that's how I ultimately felt about Faust. Even though I didn't pick him for aesthetics, I'm like, a lot of things grew on me, and so I was like, I could go into Plus R because a lot of the Plus R players were telling me, Faust players were telling me, well, it's pretty much like, 70, 80% the same character. There's just
Hmm.
differences here and there. So you can pick them up, just learn the little system differences and whatnot, which they're not many, really. Um, I was like, I thought about it. I was going to do it. I was like, no, I'm going to pick something new, something that has a lot of different aspects to it. And a character type I never touched. I picked Zappa, even though he's not really like execution heavy, he has a lot of little nuances and strategies. And so you got to be able to juggle those. And I'm having a hard time, but I'm like, I'm gonna learn him without context. I'm gonna look at all his moves, come up with ideas on how to use them, and then I'm gonna watch footage, and then I'm gonna, read the wikis, and then I'm gonna, participate in the streams, and then I'm gonna do all this, and then come back and then apply it to the base that I developed because I feel like it's easier to understand. Like if you understand the properties of a tool and then you like see, like you said, see somebody else use it, you go, oh, okay, so that move low profile is there, and I didn't think that you can use it that way. And you know why it works because you looked at the tool already. You just didn't think of that use. So I
Yep.
think that's a pretty strong thing to do as well.
Yeah, man. Just learning so many different aspects of the character through other people is such a beautiful thing. And I just don't want people to get, like you said earlier, get discouraged. But I want to ask you, and this kind of like segues into like maybe a different episode, but what do you feel like your style has changed over the years?
Um, I think I still have this. I'm still the same at the core, but I've gotten better at hiding it for good and bad, for good or bad, for better or for worse, I should say. Because I've always been like, let me wait and try to, react and stuff like that. And I've always been like very cautious, and I've been trying to change that by playing characters that might run at people, or I've been trying to, play more cautious characters and see how much it synergizes. But I still kind of have that aspect in me. But since I've been playing so many different types of characters, I'm able
Right.
to hide it better. I feel.
Mm. Yeah, I similar, but like over the years, I've realized that there's a couple of character archetypes that I've never like really fully implemented in my style. So I just was like, because over the years, probably like from like early on when I was in FGC, I always played mixed heavy characters.
Hmm.
Then and always played like other characters on the side just because like, I like playing different characters and fighting games because their personalities. But I never really took a like turn not turn heavy, but like guess heavy characters or read heavy characters seriously. And I'm starting to find that style pretty interesting, and starting to like I'm starting to implement that style more with me because like I'm starting to uh take that style seriously. Like when the beta of Guilty Gear Strive came out, I had no idea I would be playing Potemkin, but I was like, I mess around with him, and then I was like, wait, this character is really fun. And this is before like I knew he was like considered strong in that beta or anything like that.
Mhm.
It's just the whole fact of like reading my opponent and getting that command grab and all that stuff. And I was like, man, I'm actually really good at reads. I just got like brushing up on a couple stuff, but I'm really good at reads.
Definitely picking other characters and other like different types of characters can open your mind to strengths that you didn't know you had. Not even just, not even just expanding your mind like I was talking. It might be like showing you that I'm actually pretty good at something, just like you said.
Yep, and you can implement it with your main character. Like, for instance, I know a lot of people that if they run into trouble with a character matchup and they don't understand what the heck is going on, they'll pick up the character themselves, and then they'll learn. They'll probably maybe they'll get that character as a secondary, but the ultimate goal is to just understand that character even more. And so to the point for when they do have the matchup against them, they'll be so comfortable to the point where they might feel like they know the character just as much as their opponent.
Yeah, that's definitely a thing that happens. Like if even if like that's actually what I always suggest to people who go, "Oh, this character doesn't have to take any risk and they don't have to do this and they can just do this for free." And I'm like, "Yo, just play them." Because you might be right, but many times you're not.
It's a whole nother world, man.
When you're on the other side of it and it looks so free, and then you just start dying, and you're like, oh. But then you take that perspective and go, okay, now I know where the actual risk reward is with regards to this character. Now they might have actual strong risk reward, but you'll have a better understanding of it. You'll be able to play around it better. So just as another one of those things.
Yeah, because that definitely happened to me when I played against Stormlock's Robokai. I was like, man, how's he getting all these command grabs? And then I started playing him, and I was like, this character is slow. How is he moving this fast? What
that's
five
that's
frames pre-jumps? What?
That's like the perfect example right there, right? Like this character, what is this character doing? That nigga just do, oh, what the? I can't move. How do you hit people? That's
it's,
like the perfect example of what I was just saying.
it's crazy, man. Yeah, man, just like and the reason why people don't like choose to hit the lab or just take acknowledge to those characters because they hate the character so much. And this is like the opposite, right? They're like, oh, with their main character, oh, I love him, I know everything about him, lore and everything. You can't mess with me with that. But then the character that they lose to, hate it. Don't want to see it nowhere near him in my vicinity. Nope, get that out of my face. Burn it down, kill it with fire. Everything. You see all the tweets about him, everything. But then if you just mess around with that character and just understand them and just actually have matches with them sometimes, then you be like, man, this character isn't so bad. And I see, and then you start calling out when you're watching tournaments. You're like, yeah, they shouldn't do that there because it's kind of like bad, or you'll start to know when they somebody missed a punish on the character because some familiarity, and you just start calling out things. So
Yeah.
it's pretty hilarious though. I love it when when people have those moments. It's like, yo, how do you even play this character? How do you move?
Being on the other side is a different beast. Like even if the character is like legit powerful, and you being on the side of it, you may like, how do I actually bring out this power? And then you start thinking about all the steps it takes. Like, okay, this is where I gotta be to do this. This is where I have to. That's what the opponent has to be doing for this to work. And you might still walk away like this character's really good, and I hate the matchup, but at least you'll be like an informed angry person.
Perfect example of that is to me the two characters that come to my mind when I think of that is Johnny in Guilty Gear Xrd and Morgan in UMVC 3. If you talk to anybody who never touched those characters and they be like, I hate them, and then they pick them up, they're like, wait, what? How do you do this? Especially Morgan, because you got characters that can flip, zip, teleport around the screen, and you got to like input your direction, like your unfly, fly differently. Oh yes, you're in for a whole world of hurt.
Man, but I thought I could just throw the fireball out and it would just work, man. Ain't that how it goes? I, I
You
ain't gonna.
find yourself getting frustrated. You're like, wow, man, Chris G is the best. I don't understand how he's the best.
Yeah, it's like you start realizing it's an actual strategy that's being carried out, and it requires knowledge of the game, the ability to read and play around your opponent, even if it is a strong strategy. It's not something you can just do. It's something you
Yeah.
got to build up to. And once you like, and that's the thing people don't really look at is those strategies are strong because the person built them up to be that way.
It looks very cookie cutter and rinse and repeat because they're so embedded with their like style and strategies to the point where it's like when they go against somebody who's not that good, or maybe sometimes the matchup is just that bad, they just will run through it, you know, and then you don't really retain too much, in those situations when you're watching those type of matches.
Yep. Yeah, that's. I mean, that's to me. That's just like the power of building up your strategy. When people don't have a counter strategy that's just as good, and then you start it starts to look like they're just doing stuff because it's just they just got it so down packed.
Yep,
And
I've definitely seen Georgia, a lot of Georgia players where they'll have quote unquote some this matchup down, and then they go out of the state to a major, and then they'll fight that same matchup, and that player is totally different, and they're like, and they come back and they're like, I don't know anything about this match,
yeah,
about this character.
that is something I've definitely seen is especially in the online era is people will jump online, they'll play, their one friend who plays this character, and they're like, oh, this matchup sucks for my character. In reality, they don't actually know much about the game, or they don't know much about the back and forth of the matchup, or the person might be playing they might just be really good. I've seen that where someone will play somebody really good and they'll think, oh, this matchup sucks, but you don't really know. But a lot of people they take their initial and specific experience and take that as the whole picture instead of just like a fraction of the whole thing.
Yep, and they become butthurt in the end, and they go on Twitter and they make that rant, and it's like, man, I'm sorry, man, I'm sorry, bro,
That's
sorry
that's
that it
a
happened to you.
that's a badge of honor when you get somebody raging on Twitter. That's a badge of honor. You did it. You made
Especially when
it.
it's when they don't tag you. What is it? What's that called again? When they
The subtweet.
subtweet. See,
Yep.
I'm getting old. I forgot what a subtweet was.
You get up there and you pick your Kai and you start waxing them, and then you go on Twitter the next day. I don't know why Kai has every tool in the book. Uh, why is this character allowed to do so much damage? And you just nod your head, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
But man, I feel like we kind of hit the apex of this discussion. What you think?
Yeah, man. Well, actually, this could go so many ways with different players, with their styles. But I think we hit the core aspects of it, and I really do hope, like, I really do hope a lot of people get a chance to like catch this one because I feel like it can help a lot of players that like hit that plateau,
Hmm.
that that
So
are scared to stick with their characters.
So I guess I'll end it the usual way, man. What are your last thoughts on it all?
Stay loyal to your characters, you guys, no matter what kind of nerfs or buffs they get, unless it's to a point for where like they become literally unplayable. But even then, if you still like the character and you have fun with the game because of that character, then still play them, because that shows that you're just having fun. The ins and outs of the character, and then who knows, you could be that Leo in grand finals at Evo. So who
That's what's
knows?
that's what's up. I guess what I'll say is what I said earlier. Define your goals. What do you want? Do you want to be the coolest, the best, whatever? Define your goal, and whatever the goal is fine. And work towards that goal as best you can, and make sure your actions get you to that goal. Um, don't let others dissuade you. You should take in opinions and listen, of course, but don't let other people dissuade you and point you in directions you don't want to go. So do your own thing. Ultimately, do your own thing and be open minded about it as well. But other than that, I ain't got nothing else to say.
Yep. And in closing, yeah, you guys, thank you a bunch so much. We see the love that you guys give to us, and we really appreciate it so much. We will
Oh,
keep this thing going for as long as we can.
definitely. Like when we first started this, I didn't think a whole bunch of people were gonna be hit me up. Oh, when's the next episode coming? Or I really love your show. So I'm immensely thankful. We talked about that at the beginning, but I could talk about it again. Thank you, and I hope we keep delivering the goods for you.
You guys stay safe. Everybody, please wear a mask.
All right, take care and peace out.
Peace.